sure.
Yeah. All right. All right. Konnichiwa, and welcome to the Sports Dojo. I am one of your hosts, the sensei himself, Fred Please, along with the bro pie and the bro de G,
Stallion T.
Stallion T. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a full show. This is our first official episode. We've done a couple of, preseason episodes, and now it's time for the real deal. Okay. We're starting off hot and heavy. We're going right with college football. Week 0 already in progress. It is phenomenal. So we are just going, baby.
What a time to be a sports fan, a wrestling fan, everything.
Oh, it's incredible. And it just goes to show you how, sports connects us, no matter whether we are here in the dojo with the bro pie and the sensei, or you're over in Ireland where Northwestern, the Wildcats of Northwestern University, are taking on the Cornhuskers of Nebraska in Ireland. I got to say that it's a beautiful thing because I have a good friend, who is actually playing American football. Big shout out to Seamus Benjamin Connor, my man, 25 years in the Marine Corps. Goes over to the University of Ireland to continue his academic career. And what's he doing at age 44? He's playing American football. And he's just a nasty little maniac over there. So, but in Ireland, they have Northwestern Nebraska. Okay, not necessarily a marquee game, but still, it's the fact that they have, American football, 2 well-known universities kicking off on week 0. So I personally think it's great. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think we've seen the NFL over there for several years now. So now to get the college level over there, I think it's just huge.
Yes.
College is different than NFL, so it's going to be fun to see the college way of American football over there. I'll be interested to see what people travel over there.
Yeah, but it's a destination. So, the NFL is now, they're going to have 2 games in London over the course of the season and 1 game in Germany. Now, I'm going to tell you that my auntie, my beloved auntie, shout out to my Aunt Noreen, she took a trip over to London. You went to see the Raiders over there, and were the Eagles over there? The Eagles were. Yeah, they were a couple years ago. So she did that trip. And that's the beautiful thing is, it is, now as football continues to slowly take over the world,
right.
Okay, or at least introduce Europe to the game. Now people can make a destination trip. Now, are you and I heading over to Europe? Probably not anytime soon, of course, unless the dojo takes off and we all become the next Pat McAfee. Shout out to Pat McAfee and his crew. He is my boy.
Your boy.
Laying the smack down on everything.
For the
probably going to be the new punter in Indianapolis. I'm not going to lie about it. Anyway, getting back on topic. Week 0. I know for us here, because we live in South Carolina, they already started the high school football seasons.
Right.
Our Goose Creek Gators.
So
That's smacked. But that's all right. Yeah.
I saw on the news this morning they got a female kicker.
They do.
Is she
La Mera Mera.
Is she the starter?
She is the starting varsity kicker. La Mera Mera.
Awesome.
That's right. She's our new little Thunder Rosa. To eventually, because we're gonna spin off to our sports entertainment concept. But I called her La Mera Mera.
That's her varsity?
She's varsity. And she can kick.
Yeah,
she got a leg.
I saw it, Mick.
Yeah, I was there because this is totally non sequitur, so I know all of our millions of fans are very interested in this. But here's a young woman. She's a soccer player. Tough girl, but sweeter than Tupelo honey. But she's got a leg, and she can kick from distance. She is. She's small. That's the word problem with her. If she is, I don't even think she's 100 pounds, but she's tough. very intelligent young woman, and has a leg. I mean, she can kick. And in high school, why not? I mean, why not get her out there? I keep teasing her and telling her I want her to start at safety and I want her to light some people up. But I called. I said to her the other day, I says, "You're right. Can I call you La Mera Mera?" Which is what they call Thunder Rosa of AEW. And she's like, "Oh yeah, you can call me that." I'm like, "Good," because I tried to. So like La Mera Mera, when you translate it into English, it means the mirror. But really, what it is like the one. The mere awesomeness.
So she obviously knew that.
So she knew, but I wanted to make sure, again, culturally sensitive and making sure that the young woman feels respected. But I said, "You're La Mera Mera," and she laughed and she's like, "Well, you can call me that." She got really excited. I'm like, "You're darn right, because that's what they call Thunder Rosa, and you got that moxie."
That's awesome.
So, but again, in college they had the woman kicker. I think was it Purdue. Or Vanderbilt. And by the way, that girl could kick. I mean, she had a boot. So why not? Again, it's the beauty of football is, yes, it is a physical sport. But if you're a young woman who feels like you can get out there and hang, why not? Have at it. So who knows? But getting back to the college, you got Florida State playing the mighty Duquesne Dukes.
Well, let's go back real quick. Who you got Nebraska Northwestern?
I don't.
Who are you picking?
Yeah, I haven't followed the Big Ten as closely.
Mm-hmm.
I know both of those programs are sort of, mid-tier in the Big Ten. Northwestern.
They were in the Big Ten championship.
2 years ago. Nebraska's still trying to find their way. They brought the guy in from Houston who was supposed to be the salvation of that program. Right. It hasn't quite worked out. He went there, yeah. I don't know. I don't know enough about either team to make a real judgment on it, but I will tell you this, that generally Northwestern somehow pulls it off. Mm-hmm. Just because they ebb and flow every couple of years, and I think they're sort of ebbing. Or at least going up. So, it should, for a week 0 game, as they're calling it, it should be good. I mean, it's football,
It'll
man.
probably be a sloppy mess.
Yeah, but in Ireland, it's good football weather over there.
It is.
So, why not?
Give me the Wildcats.
I don't know. Yeah, give me the Wildcats, too.
I think defense will be what holds that
team
together.
I'm going to tell you that Florida State against the mighty Duquesne Dukes. Listen.
Florida State,
Duquesne could show up. You and I laughed, in talking weeks ago that last season, Florida State was one loss away from Deion Sanders becoming head coach. Obviously, I think Mike Norvell will have his team ready for Duquesne. Right. Whether they're going to be ready for the ACC is going to be interesting, but. Right. I mean, this should be nothing more than a scrimmage, but good for Duquesne. Good for Duquesne stepping up. Same thing with UNC. They might play Florida A&M. You had some breaking news about Florida A&M.
Yeah, I hadn't followed up on it, but just the other day I read that Florida A&M had like 10 players out. I didn't do my research like I should have, so I don't know if it was COVID related or what. But there was the talk of whether they were going to even get on the plane or the bus to travel. Wow. So I'm not sure. I haven't heard that it's been canceled. So I assume the game is on. North Carolina, they still have Sam Howell?
No, Sam Howell's in the NFL.
He got drafted, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember if So new quarterback for North Carolina. How Mac Brown do? North Carolina has been a factor in the SEC, but they haven't lived up to the expectations.
And the problem was 2 seasons ago when Sam Howell was playing out of his mind.
Right.
He went, they were factored. Last year, they really, underperformed for what their expectations were. I don't think they had the talent for the expectations they had. But new quarterback. I mean, listen, Mac Brown's a good coach. He's been around for 30 some odd years. He knows football. Can they recruit at North Carolina like some of the other places? Not as well, but enough
to float.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, I think they finished middle of the pack in that division.
Yeah, but I think in the ACC, because of the way it's structured, if you're in the middle of the pack, you at least have a shot to the championship game.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah.
Which,
So,
by the way, I think it will be a.
by the way, I need to
think
show
the AC
our massive viewing audience. This is totally unsponsored, but yeah, this is how you know I'm from Philly. Is I got the Wawa Cup. But go on.
I think the ACC will have a better year this year. I think there's a lot of good quarterbacks in the ACC.
There are.
Louis Cunningham at Louisville. Wake Forest still has. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, but
Wake Forest quarterback.
That kid's quick.
DJ, I think at Clemson will be fine. I think he's going to.
Yeah, he had a rough. I think he had a rougher season because I think people thought he was just going to step in and be Trevor Lawrence.
But I think there were so many factors that went into it.
Yeah, they had a lot of injuries.
A lot of injuries. Went already on a somewhat of a young team.
Mm-hmm.
The expectations that he played to live up to that he played in those 2 games he played in the year before when he filled in. And then on top of it, now he's lost 30 pounds, and I think that makes a world of difference. Yeah,
I mean, he's going to be more of a thrower. I think Dabo's going to have him, throwing the ball around the yard a lot more because last year they expected him to be more of a runner. I don't know. It should be interesting. I mean, Clemson, I believe is going to have a huge bounce back year, and especially with all the changes that are coming. And you and I have talked in the past, and anybody wants to go back and look on our page of the prior pre-episodes of the dojo. When they eventually move to those super conferences, and Clemson is in the SEC. I mean, there's really only going to be 2. There's going to be what I see is the Big Ten and the SEC. That's really they're going to be super conferences. Everybody else will be sort of like minor league or the way.
NFL. It's going to be AFC, NFC.
Yeah. And so I think, but again, Dabo's building a young, strong team to be prepared to be a real competitor there. Because I think a lot of people look down on Clemson in the metaverse or in the sports universe because they're like, oh, they play in the ACC. But the ACC these are legit players. I mean, these have been powerhouses for a lot of years.
Still putting players in just because they're not putting as many in the SEC.
Right.
They're putting tons of, look at the quarterbacks in the NFL. A lot of them are ACC quarterbacks.
Yeah, and again, the idea too is that they're quality programs. Right. They weren't what they were because of how the SEC is sort of taken over when it comes to recruiting. But the reality is that there are a lot of good players in the ACC, and a lot of guys that are on NFL rosters too.
And if they weren't good enough, they would have been left behind.
Absolutely, and they're not going to be
around. Right?
Yeah. So, and I got to give a big shout out to my the universities which my aunt and uncle teach. NMSU, New Mexico State University, kicking off this year. Big Aggies fans. So be it. Anyway, let's talk about the upcoming weekend. How college football has gotten smart and basically their big kickoff weekend is now Labor Day weekend because the NFL is pushing back a whole week. You got Pitt, West Virginia, which should be
Thursday, kicking off
Thursday night college football. I love it.
I got Pittsburgh in that one.
I think so too.
I say that because I don't know enough about what West Virginia is going. Yeah, but I just feel like coming off the momentum of last year, I know it's a completely different quarterback.
Yeah.
But I just feel like that team is coached well.
Mm-hmm.
They've always, I think, defensively been a good team, and I just think they'll be the better team in that.
Yeah,
game.
I mean, I think Slovis coming from USC he was good out there, but you're in the Pac-12 where defense is a rumor. It's a little bit more significant in the ACC. Like he's going to be facing some tough defenses.
Right.
But I think the kid's got the talent. Now, if he turns out to just be another typical SC quarterback where he's great in the Pac-12 but not on the next level, who knows? I mean, the kid was highly recruited at SC. Obviously didn't fit with Lincoln Riley's new vision for SC.
Right.
And probably never would have. But I like him at Pitt. I think Pitt is a good landing spot for the kid.
I don't think Pittsburgh's as good this year as they were last year.
No, but I think they're at least good enough to beat West Virginia.
And to contend for the Coastal.
Yeah, and I think, they're going to be a significant player. Obviously, I think you and I both think that it's Clemson's division to lose because I don't think Florida State will bounce back enough.
Right. The contenders in the Atlantic for Clemson are going to be Wake Forest and NC State.
Yeah. But again, I don't think you're going to see a big drop off from them. And I honestly, with you outside of the quarterback position, I don't think there is going to be much drop off from Pitt. I think Pitt's building a solid program, and their coach is strong.
I know they lost that one receiver to USC, their top receiver.
Yeah, but
so I don't know how that affects them.
Well, again, it's one of those things where they had some talent last year outside of that kid. It
really wouldn't have mattered anyways, because Slovis wasn't going to come in and have chemistry right off the bat.
No.
That guy who had to build it, so it doesn't really matter. It's a fresh start either way.
Yeah, and that's and again, it's college football, so you just never know how different situations are going to affect these kids. But I think he has at least set himself up to have legitimate success, and I think Pitt's a good landing spot. They get good head coach, good coordinators, and I think they make some noise. But again, I really feel like it's going to be Clemson's division to lose. Wake will make noise. Florida State might make some noise. NC State, I think, is always a wildcat. They're always the wild card.
Wake Forest, even last year, we smoked Wake Forest. They don't have a defense.
No, they don't. And if they can't run the ball, they're dead.
And so NC State, luckily we play. They always give us a hard time. It's a rivalry game. Luckily, we play them at home this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got their quarterback back, and he's another good one.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a quality program. The other big Thursday game, if you were telling me, is Penn State Purdue.
Yeah.
Big 10 tilt.
At Purdue.
At Purdue. I don't know how big of a drop off Purdue's going to have from last year, but Purdue made some noise. Penn State's always disappointing.
How did Penn State do last
Penn State was, again, a 9-4 team. I have never been a believer in the coach. He had some big wins last year, but ultimately I think he's a choker. I think he makes some really stupid calls at the end of games. But they seem to be happy with him. A lot of Penn State are just, I'm from, those of you who know me know, and I'm from the Philadelphia area, so I have a lot of friends that are Penn State fans. They're not in love with the head coach, but he continues to do his thing, and he gets them in bowl games, so he makes them money.
Right.
I don't know. I just don't. I'm not a huge fan of him. So, and I think he makes too many stupid decisions.
They recruit quite well enough.
No, but again, it's the same thing they always had. Like they, good, bad, or indifferent. Under Paterno, they had an identity.
Right.
Under him, they don't have an identity, and they never have. And it's hard to get a quarterback up at State College because it's cold, and it's and it's not that different from going to Pitt. So, but anyway.
All right. So then I don't think we didn't plan on it, but how about Friday? We got the Mighty Temple Owls taking on
Temple,
the Duke Blue Devils
University.
The Duke Blue Devils.
Fight for the cherry and white.
Does Duke have a bounce back season?
At least against Temple they will.
I don't recall. I think they had a terrible year last year.
Yeah, they did, but Temple was utterly awful. They had to get rid of Rob Cherry, who was their head coach. Anyway, so Temple's got a new head coach. I'm excited about him. Obviously, Temple's not a major program, but is my alma mater. And, a couple of years ago when, head coach of the Carolina Panthers, Matt Rule was there. He had him in the top 10 for the first time ever. They were on national TV. I'll still not forget this game. It was against Notre Dame. It was a Halloween night. Had to take the little ones out trick or treat. I had the game on tape. Turned my phone off. I said, I don't know updates. I don't know anything. Obviously, who's the guy who was he was a receiver in Texas for the Houston Texans? Will I can't think of his name, but he was supposed to be a big deal as a receiver coming out of Notre Dame. And Will, you know who I'm talking about? Will somebody Jr. And he torched really Temple.
Fast guy.
Yeah, super fast. And that was it. That's what that he beat Temple at the end.
Right.
And so that was that. But no, I mean I don't think Temple's going to give Duke much trouble, even though I don't think Duke necessarily has a bounce back season. Will Fuller. Yes. Good pull by you. Will catches that touchdown in the fourth quarter, and that was that. Duke's. I don't know where Duke's at. I mean, since the Daniel Jones era, Duke's sort of been mid-tier, and I think they'll continue.
3-9. Both teams are 3-9.
Yeah. So yeah, and the three. Lest anyone be confused, two of Temple's wins were against Division II opponents.
They did beat them.
Yeah, they did, and that was a huge win.
Western.
Those were two huge wins that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Because they, got smoked by Rutgers, and it was tough. It's tough, but again, you have to understand that it's inner city Philadelphia. Right. But the people, they get behind them.
All right.
Anyway, so I know people are riveted by Temple University football, but
we're gonna skip Saturday, I think, because we're gonna talk about Saturday next week.
Yeah, next
week.
But
we can just go ahead and then obviously, so Sunday of the holiday weekend was gonna be Florida State and LSU.
Yeah.
And then Monday, the Labor Day game is going to be Clemson, Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and I think those are two really, really good games. It's going to be interesting to see what LSU brings under Brian Kelly.
Yes.
Quite honestly, I think it's going to be a disaster.
I think of LSU has clearly always had the talent. You look at how many players they put in the NFL. It's just always been the coaching or the scheme
or lack of a quarterback.
Right, which
lack of a quarterback
has to do. Yeah. So, do you like Brian Kelly as a coach?
No. And listen, I know he had all that success at Notre Dame, but quite honestly, anybody can be a good coach at Notre Dame.
Notre Dame's always had good enough quarterback.
Yeah, and again, it's easy to recruit to Notre Dame.
Right.
All right. Now, what'll be interesting moving forward is if eventually when they stop being an independent and start into somebody's conference, most likely the ACC or the Big Ten, depending on where they go for football. But you can always recruit at Notre Dame.
I almost wonder if the players of LSU in the long run will get along with Kelly.
No, I don't think so.
Because I almost see him as he could even possibly. Obviously, that was on the NFL level, but I look at him almost like an Urban Meyer, just rub people.
I don't know if he's as bad as Urban Meyer.
Not as bad, but not as bad.
Now, I look at him. Gosh, who does he remind me of? Who's a guy who he's more Chip Kelly like. Mm-hmm. Now, Chip Kelly, who I will despise for the rest of my life. By the way, he was the guy that traded Shady. So I'll still never get over the trade of LaShawn McCoy away from the Eagles. But he's a Chip Kelly. He's a guy who, he had obviously Chip Kelly had tremendous success at Oregon because how hard was it to recruit those kids from inner city LA to go, hey, listen, you're not going to, what do you want to go to SC for? Come up to Oregon. We're going to give you all this stuff because Phil Knight is up there. And my God, here we go. And the same thing, like I said, then he goes to UCLA. He's having a moderate success, but I think ultimately people figure him out. And I think it's the same thing for Brian Kelly. It's one thing to be independent, being at Notre Dame, not so much hand selecting your opponents because they do. Not that they don't pick quality people because they always have the SC game. They always have Stanford. They always have Northwestern. So they play. Always have Michigan
or
State.
Ohio State.
Right. They always have Michigan State on there. So it's not that Notre Dame doesn't play quality opponents, but now you're talking the SEC where everybody's a quality opponent. There are no gimmies in the SEC. So you're going to go down to LSU and them Gator baiting, monsters down there. And you're going to try to have an up-tempo offense, which doesn't fit. And not that Coach O, I like Coach O, but Coach O is an offensive line coach, right? So when he had that old ball coach, and talking to the rock about, hey, do it, keep them pads low. It worked because people were like, he's an LSU guy, right? Then they figured out, oh, wait, he can't recruit. I think Brian Kelly might be able to recruit, and that's the only thing that's going to bring him success. But I honestly think Florida State beats them.
Brian Kelly, a quarterback guy?
Yeah. He's an offensive guy. That's what he is. And again, that's why he had a lot of success at Notre Dame because he could get moderately good quarterbacks.
Right.
The problem is it's a whole different level of competition now.
Right.
So when you're trying to go up against Alabama, when you're trying to go up against Florida, when you're trying to go up against even Mississippi State, or even Kentucky. I mean, these are teams that are they play ferocious on both sides of the ball. And I think LSU is just not there. I'm just sorry. And I don't know much about
their quarterback. So LSU's quarterback, this is interesting, is Jaden Daniels, who's quarterback over at Arizona State, who is supposed to be a pretty good quarterback.
He is. And again, Arizona State is one of those places, because I know Herm Edwards is still out there. They're Arizona and Arizona State are probably the biggest losers in the fact that SC and UCLA are leaving, right? Because at least like the Arizona schools have always been good, but you take UCLA and you have no notoriety out there,
right?
So I mean, again, the kid can play. I mean, Arizona State wasn't terrible, but with Herm Edwards, it's more of a defensive team,
right?
And they get good players. I don't know if they get great players, so we'll see. I mean, ultimately, LSU's Achilles heel has always been lack of a quarterback.
Right.
So now you got a kid who's a half decent quarterback, but LSU's a defensive team. So unless Brian Kelly's defensive coordinator is coming in and he's building them monsters again, because that's what Coach O did. He brought the monsters in, and that's how they won a national championship. Oh wait, you had Joe Burrow, who was at the time the best quarterback that they had seen in college football since Oliver Luck, or not Oliver Luck, Andrew Luck. Oliver's his dad. Since Andrew Luck. So I don't know. I mean, for some reason I think that FSU Louisiana State game is going to be bad.
Lots of turnovers.
Yeah, I think FSU at least will have the scrimmage game.
I think LSU wins. I got LSU.
Yeah, I think Florida State wins. So that's a little bit. I mean, we'll talk more next episode of the Sports Dojo.
Right.
About what you're going to see next week's slate of games, and it should be really interesting. All right,
moving on.
We're gonna shift gears in the dojo and go on to next NFL. Anything out of the preseason that has shocked you or surprised you?
Well, so I want to talk about Pittsburgh because, I don't necessarily have a dedicated team in the NFL, but I've always loved watching Pittsburgh. I've got a real good friend who's been
there's a cure for that, in case you're worried about it. I can help you with that.
I love me some Steelers. I tell you, I know it's just preseason, but I've still been impressed with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, he's been impressive.
I think give Trubisky a couple games. If he doesn't prove it,
3 games.
I don't think they'll hesitate to put Pickett right in.
Well, I will tell you this: what they're going to do for Trubisky, because I think he can semi-play.
I do too.
I think his time in Buffalo was the best thing for him, because he literally could sit back, hold the clipboard like he should have when the Bears drafted him, and he can.
What's happening? The same thing.
Yeah,
tragedies happen to Justin Fields.
So I think that was the best thing for him. Brian Dalbo, whoever the coach is now, and with the Giants, who was the offensive coordinator in Buffalo, is a quarterback whisperer. I mean, what he did with Josh Allen is ludicrous, and I see aspects of that with Trubisky. Ultimately, Pittsburgh is going to go back to its core, which is running the football.
Right.
And not that I'm tipping my hand a little bit fantasy-wise, because the Brochacho and I are going to be fierce competitors
tomorrow.
But Najee Harris, I think, is going to have a huge year, and I think they're going to rely on him heavily.
Yeah.
You still got Chase Claypool, who makes any quarterback look good.
I think the receiving core is a little better. Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, Deontay Johnson. And let me tell you something. George Pickett from Georgia, he's disgraceful. And I want to tell you why he's disgraceful. Because he brutalizes and victimizes cornerbacks. He's like Brock flipping Lesnar out there. Because, he did it in the championship game when he hit that kid and he sent him about 5 yards. And then he did it in the preseason. And I'm like, he victimized that dude. And I think George Pickens is going to be the bust-out guy if Trubisky can get him the ball.
Right.
Trubisky doesn't have a great arm. He's, a dink and dunker. But if they run the ball and do that, I think Pittsburgh is going to make noise. Cleveland, the NFL. Who knows? 11 games for your boy. Some people
could've
don't.
been worse. I'll
Some
take
people
it.
think it
I'll
should have
take
been
it.
more. Again, we can hash out the Deshaun Watson nonsense another time. Here's what I'm going to say this, and any people are out there, and I know our legions of dojo fans are out there. Do not compare Deshaun Watson to Michael Vick, because Michael Vick went to prison for 18 months, lost $50 million, was contrite, and did everything he was supposed to do. Okay, I don't see Deshaun as even contrite, and that's a problem for me, just for me personally. But
if he did anything,
okay. Again, one or two.
If he did anything.
22.
Out of nowhere.
I don't know. Yeah, like an RKO.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to move on. Last night, got to sit down and watch some serious Carolina Panthers football. Speaking of Cleveland, Baker Mayfield out there looking like the Baker of his rookie season in Cleveland. But
how did he do?
Baker looked good. I mean, he drove the team down. They scored a touchdown, mostly running the ball, because Chuba Hubbard can't catch a football to save his life. They looked good. I mean, they moved the ball on Buffalo. Of course, Buffalo had the 2s and 3s in there. But and by the way, I don't care who's in. If it's the 1s, 2s, or 3s, nobody's going to be able to run the football on Buffalo. They are just stacked when it comes to run defense. Now, pass defense, you might be able to get them if you can get time, but you're not going to be able to run the ball on Buffalo. But I thought Baker looked all right. You feel bad for Sam Darnold; he got hurt. 3 to 4 weeks, high ankle sprain. Probably the best thing for him because he lost that job. Matt Corral out for the season already. Right. The guy who they were kind of counting on. But I think Baker looked a little different. Now, whether he is or not is two different stories, but he looked a little different. He looked a little crisper. Mm-hmm. Bob McAdoo, who looks like a 70s adult film producer. He's a good offensive coordinator, a terrible head coach. So I don't know. I think Baker's got a chance to at least redeem himself a little bit and save Matt's job for another year. But so that's all I witnessed. And lest anyone be confused, Chase Keenum is one of the luckier people on the planet. That's how that guy has survived 10 years in the league.
He was a baller in college.
He stinks.
He
was a baller in college at Houston. Like, stop. He stinks.
I'm excited to see Jags. Jags play Falcons today.
Yeah, I mean that should be a slobber knocker of a game.
Yeah.
I mean,
Trevor looked. I thought, considering his preseason, I thought last week he had his best preseason game. He looked good, and I didn't really see. I've been looking since we're kind of getting ready to talk about fantasy. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, considering he didn't play at all last season, a lot of people have really high expectations for ETN.
Yeah. And we know because you and I mean, you especially, you're a Clemson guy. That boy, when he's healthy, is explosive.
Right, and I think he is truly in better shape than he's ever been. There's a couple runs last week where he broke a couple tackles and fell, but if he didn't fall to the ground, he was gone.
Yeah, and he's he's an explosive back,
and he can catch.
Yeah, and the best thing in the world for Trevor Lawrence, for Travis Etienne, for that whole team was bringing Doug in. And Dougie P, very special guy, will forever never have to buy a meal in Philadelphia ever because he brought a Super Bowl to the greatest sports city on the planet, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I mean, after the Urban Meyer disaster, and you and I have talked in the past about how the only good thing Urban Meyer did last year, was hand a laptop to Chris Jericho so he could whack MJF upside the head. That was the only good thing he did last year. And of course, where's Urban Meyer this year? Back on Fox. Yeah. Gonna break it down. Sit there, and he'll sit there, wait another 2 seasons till another school's desperate, and watch him.
Maybe he's listening to this.
Good. Well, you listen, if you are, which I listen, Urban and Meyer and I, we don't get along. You know that. He's probably not listening, so I can say rotten things about him.
He's a follow you on Twitter.
No, he's.
You wouldn't accept this.
I won't accept it. No. when I ask, because I always ask if people are following me, because my God, why wouldn't you follow me? Yeah. But no, I told Meyer, don't bother. Don't bother. You don't need to. Anyway, but yeah, I think Jacksonville's got a chance to be a 6-win team.
I think their defense will be the best thing probably about them.
They're young. They got weapons.
Right.
But I think Chenault's going to have a good year.
I think Kirk will have a good year.
Yeah.
They got Kirk, Chenault. Who's the
other?
I can't tell you off the top of my head.
I can't either. He's a small guy, but he's fast.
But yeah, I mean, I think they're a team that is at least on the projection for a couple of years to be in a good spot.
Well, they're at least on the rise. Houston, you don't know what you're going to get out of that division. Who else is with that? Indy and Tennessee. Obviously, I think it's still Tennessee's division to win.
Who's Indy's quarterback?
It's Matt Ryan now. So
that's right.
And by the way, he is the 6th quarterback in 6 years.
Yeah.
So, but he's Matt Ryan, and I think he and Frank Reich are a good match. Now, ultimately, you got Jonathan Taylor. I think Michael Pittman and another fantasy drop. Fantasy hint. I think Michael Pittman's going to have a huge year.
Right.
Matt Ryan's a good quarterback. He's still got a lot of life in that arm with a solid running game. I mean, they could make a lot of noise. Defensively is where they have the problem. I mean, Butler's a tremendous linebacker, but they have some health issues on the defensive side. I think Jacksonville has a chance to at least show good improvement. I think the Texans are going to be a disaster again. Why you bring Lovie Smith in, I don't know. Lovie Smith stinks. I'm sorry, I don't think he's a great coach. And then, like you said, you got Tennessee, but even Tennessee's vulnerable. If they can't run the football, and everybody keys on Derrick Henry, if he gets hurt, they don't have the guy that backed him up last year. He went to Carolina, and I see the guy getting more carries than even Chuba Hubbard, because Chuba Hubbard can't catch the football.
Where's Julio now?
Julio's in.
He was 1 year in Tennessee.
He was 1 year in Tennessee. Did he go to LA?
I can't tell you.
I don't know either. This is like I should know this because I have to have my fantasy football sleep.
Does it sound like we're ready for tomorrow?
No, barely.
This is the least prepared I've ever been for fantasy.
Yeah,
but I'm excited.
Well, and the thing of it is sometimes you do have the preseason to sort of get you ready, but that's not how the NFL's rolling anymore.
Right.
Like somebody was talking about, and again, this is because again, a Philly guy, John Kincaid, who does the morning show in Philadelphia, and John Kincaid's I think a really good sports talk guy. He talked about they should start filming the joint practices because people will watch. I'd be on that. Like,
it's more entertaining than the preseason games,
and you're getting more of seeing who's out there. Like, perfect example of this. So the Eagles and the Dolphins are playing, and they had the joint practices.
Right.
So first thing Miami tweets is Tyreek Hill, kind of beating Darius Slay. Darius Slay got turned around a little bit, this and that. So, of course, that goes right up, boom. What they didn't tweet were the 47 times that the Eagles receivers, especially A.J. Brown, were burning Miami's corners left and right. So, but I mean, I think people would honestly be into that.
Oh, I see.
I would absolutely watch it.
And then, I mean, just in general, entertaining the fights. I mean, just
yeah.
But I was just saying, like, it's a very interesting situation.
And the problem becomes, like you said, in years prior, the preseason at least gave you a preview. Like maybe you get an offensive set, maybe you get a quarter to see the ones out there. Now the preseason is just about who's going to fill out the 53 roster, right? So you don't know. I mean, outside of the big deal about Tom Brady starting tonight because he was mysteriously left for 2 weeks, to tend to his family. Because they couldn't schedule a vacation before, training camp. Tom had to mysteriously go away for 2 weeks.
When you're Tom freaking Brady, whatever you want.
When the allegations about collusion with Miami are in the air, and Thomas, goes away for 2 weeks, and nobody knows where he is except Todd Bowles. What? Oh my God! Good Lord!
So let's talk a little bit about fantasy.
Yeah, let's talk about it, because you and I are going to be head to head a couple times.
Are.
We might not even be able to do the show those weeks.
I think you are.
Goodness, our legions of fans. What are they going to do if we're not broadcasting?
Dude, you might be. Are you the number 1 pick?
I should be.
Because you were just that terrible last year?
No, I was that terrible. I thought it was actually no. In our league, I was that terrible.
Yes.
I had. Can I and I know our legions of fans can appreciate this.
No,
the injury bug.
You are the 5th pick. You are the 5th. So you're middle of the pack.
Yeah, which is where I was, dude. I had such injuries, and
that's what everybody
no, but it's true. But here's the deal, and this is the problem. So the people who play in our I'm in a couple of different leagues, right? Yeah. And one league, I'm the only person that really knows football, right? So I dominate that league. That's easy, right? Our league, you got people who know football. So what kills you is if people get an injury, we're all going after the same player.
So let me tell you this. So in the NFL,
and the waiver wire is very unfair to me.
The free agency closes, first Thursday, and it opens back up after the Monday night game.
Right.
So my first couple of years of this league, me and another friend who's in this league, we would literally. It would open up at 3:00 a.m.
Yeah, 3:01
Tuesday morning.
3:01.
We would set our clocks and wake up at 3:01 to get it.
Dude, I'm a 7:30 guy. I'm like a 7:30 morning. Turn the computer on. Forget work. Who cares about work? Who cares about
And if you're not there, it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, and that was what killed me. What killed me was I was in a league with people who know football.
Yeah,
and you just go.
So now you just got to step game.
Yeah, well, again, 3. I'll be up at 3 in the morning. 3 a.m. I won't be lonely. To quote whatever the group Rob Thomas.
So without telling me too much, after last season, knowing how to lose, what's kind of your strategy? Do you have a strategy for the draft?
I'm going to tell you, and not the tip, but I'm always quarterback first.
Really?
Although this is a year, and I am a believer fantasy wise, like it would be if it was real. If you don't have a good quarterback, you're toast.
Right.
This is the first year though, because I there's a couple of people that I listen to that really talk about this could be a year where you're smart to drive wide receiver first. And that's the first time that I've heard, because
a lot of people like running backs.
Yeah, they like running backs because traditionally,
right, and you're guaranteed touches and yards.
But the reality is, if you're not getting Derrick Henry,
right,
or some of the top guys, I heard a guy who I really trust. They call him the Geek. Guy's in honestly, and this is crazy because he does this for a living. He's in 74 fantasy football leagues. Okay, this dude's. When they call him the Geek, he truly is the geek. But he makes money at it. If you listen, God bless. You can make a living at something. Have at it. That's what I say. But he talked about how this wide receiver grouping in the NFL is so deep that it might be wise to go wide receiver first.
Right.
But he talked about some of the top receivers out there. Obviously.
So let's look at it. I got it right here. So you got Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I think he's at everybody's top of the list.
Right.
I don't see him dropping off unless he gets injured.
Justin Jefferson,
number 2.
Jamar
Chase, number 3.
Devontae Adams.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he's going to drop off. No. And especially, here's the thing. I think not only is Devontae going to benefit because Derek Carr, granted, he's not Aaron Rodgers. Nobody is. We understand with the ayahuasca and the meditation and all that Aaron Rodgers does and Mr. State Farm and whatever. Derek Carr is a good quarterback.
Yeah. And
I think Devontae Adams will not fall off. Who it really helps is Waller and Hunter Renfrow. Yeah. And who else did they have? They have who's their other receiver? But anyway, I don't think Devontae Adams is going to drop off much.
No. You got Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, he's a red flag.
Really, you think?
Only because he's unhappy. and they're
Okay.
such a run dominant offense.
Right.
But within a run dominant offense, those jet sweep, he gets a ton of yardage jet sweep wise. So I don't think I think I'm right on par with that. Stephon Diggs, although this is one thing that they were sort of pointing out, and I concur with this. Stephon Diggs is not the only weapon in Buffalo anymore.
Right. Who do they have?
Knox and who's the other young guy? But they got some receivers, and they got a half decent tight end, and they got guys who can catch. They can't run the ball, but they can catch the ball out of the backfield.
Right.
So Diggs might not be as top of a pick as, like, he could be a second round type kind of guy, but Diggs is going to have a good year just because he's such a deep threat. But there are other options in Buffalo, and so
you got CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, T. Higgins.
Higgins, I agree with. CeeDee Lamb, I agree with, even though he's a stinking Cowboy. But I think now that Amari Cooper's gone, CeeDee Lamb's going to be the number one guy there.
Your boy AJ Brown.
AJ Brown. Although I'm going to tell you this right now, and the geek agreeing with me, and my man, a big shout out to Anthony L. Gargano, the Cuz from 97.5 The Fanatic, my hermano, my favorite guy. Cuz says stay away from Devonta Smith. He said because at every practice, Jalen Hurts only looks at AJ Brown. Because AJ Brown's there, he's open. But so Devonta Smith may have a really tough season. Yeah. I honestly don't think so. I think they are going to specifically design plays for Devonta Smith, but clearly he's not the number one target anymore.
I think Juju does in Kansas City.
You know, I think Juju will be okay.
Do you think it's going to hurt them? No, because Tyreek was such a unique.
No,
he was such a unique way you can use him.
No, I'm going to tell you that I think. What is it, Mecole Hardman? I think
gets a bigger role.
I think that's why they were able to get rid of Tyreek.
Right.
I think that kid's just as much a burner. I think Juju's fine. I think Juju's sort of in that stage where people realize he's a possession receiver. He's not going to get you a whole lot of yards after catch, but he'll get you that 6 yard out. They'll help move the ball. And listen, Mahomes is that good. So we can talk about how great Rodgers is and how Rodgers elevates his receivers. He doesn't elevate anybody else, but
so when you go into the draft, like I'll tell you first, like, so for my strategy, this is probably year 5, 6 for me for fantasy.
Yeah,
so this year I'm going in it, one, because this is the least amount of research I've done, and 2 is to go into it and, like you said, the wide receiver grouping is so deep.
But you go down that top 20.
And there's going to be injuries. Yeah. So my idea is to come into it from a perspective of, let me pick not who I would like to have, because you do that and then the guys aren't there and then you have to figure out what you want. I'm going to look for the guys who maybe aren't the number one guy or kind of the sleepers, I guess what I'm saying, the sleepers.
Right.
And then if there's somebody there left, I can only go up from there.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you, for me, my philosophy is that I would do that with running backs, not with wide receiver and with quarterbacks. So for me, my philosophy is you got to reach, and even if it's somebody who you normally wouldn't draft, you got to reach for. I think you reach for quarterback and wide receiver. There's still a ton of really good running backs that I think you get 3rd round, 4th round, who are top tier guys. And I think we can talk a little bit about that, but because of the way the NFL is going, the NFL is getting to be such a pass-happy league that you got to. My philosophy is I'm looking quarterback, wide receivers, and I'll take what's left in running back.
So I assume that you're going Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes first. If they're on the board.
If they're on the board, which I honestly don't anticipate them being there.
We were just talking yesterday, me and my friend Eric. We were talking yesterday we were joking about, who's going to be the first person to pick Mahomes in the first round.
Right. Well, it could be me.
You.
And I'm going to tell you right now, because I believe philosophically, just like I do in a regular football team, if you don't have a good quarterback, you don't have a good team.
Who's quarterback last year?
I think I had like Mahomes. I had Mahomes in a couple of leagues.
I think you did have Mahomes.
Yeah, and I had I usually bet on old man Brady, like old man Champa, but I want to say I had Matt Ryan in one league, who got me a ton of fantasy points, but they had no wins. They were just because they were all garbage
Right.
time. I want to say I had Matthew Stafford in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, listen, there's. I think Rodgers is going to have one of those bleep you years where he's going to show the world that he doesn't need anybody and he's on the ayahuasca.
Did they get any big time receivers
No.
in Green Bay or still no?
Listen, the great Travis Fulgham came over to them. You know, the great. So he had like the best 10 games in NFL history for the Eagles, and then he completely fell off.
He's a coach.
No, he's a receiver.
He's still.
Yeah, no, he's a young guy. But, like, they don't really have anybody.
Right.
They lost obviously Devontae Adams, and even though I thought he and Rodgers were ride or die, man.
Right.
And by the way, he had a lot of positive things to say about Rodgers. He came out and had that interview on was the Players thing or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And had nothing but good things to say about Rodgers because they expected him to tear Rodgers apart. He didn't. He said, "Look, I had to go where the money was, and had nothing to do with Aaron and all that. But I thought they were ride or die, but clearly they weren't." And who's the other one? Scantling's whatever went to Detroit, I think.
Right.
So he
or Amon St. Brown. No.
So I guess it's Amon St. Brown is their top guy.
No, he's in Detroit.
One of them's in Detroit. One of them stayed.
Right.
But Scantling, it's one of those. I don't know who the top is.
That's I mean, that's the thing. It's not in the top. Green Bay don't have a top receiver in the top 40.
But that's why I think they're going to rely on that running game.
Allen Lazard.
Yeah, Lazard can play. I mean, he can play a little bit.
You know who?
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, you go down that list, and it's like I think they drafted a kid though.
Valdez Scantling is the Chiefs.
The Chiefs. That's right.
They got Amari Rodgers who played at Clemson. He's a good player. They talked about he got really into NFL shape finally this year.
Yeah, I think he's going to be. I think
he's a slot guy.
Yeah, he's a good player. I mean, he was a good player at Clemson. So, he was solid.
I guess it just comes down to does he get that chemistry going with Rodgers? If he does, I think he plays. If not, then he just.
Yeah, well, I think Aaron Rodgers will take him to some retreat and they'll meditate and all sit around and do the hot yoga together. And
these Packer quarterbacks, I've never even heard of.
Well, the one kid is Jordan Love.
Well, there's.
Are you talking about receivers or quarterbacks?
Receivers.
Yeah,
receivers.
I'm telling you, Travis Fulgham, man. Travis Fulgham.
He isn't even on.
Yeah, he'll be on page 6.
On page 20. Romeo Doubs.
Oh my God! There you go.
Romeo.
Again, yeah.
Christian,
you know what they're going to say during the
Christian
season?
Watson.
Yeah, during the season, Romeo, where art thou, Romeo?
Randall Cobb.
Still.
Yes.
Still.
Dude, I think he's
110, but that's
he
still gets the ball.
Play a little, and
he's
fast.
Yeah, well, but he's he's fast for like a guy my age. So. But yeah, but still.
Sammy Watkins bringing some veteran.
Yeah, back because he left Kansas City, right?
Right, as long as he can stay healthy.
But he
brings the
veteran. Yeah, but he's on the back end.
He is, but he's a dependable guy. He's somebody who knows the game.
Yeah, and
he knows how to play receiver.
Yeah, and listen, Aaron Rodgers is that bloody good. I mean,
right.
Whatever you want to say about his personality and the ayahuasca and the meditation.
I love Aaron. I'm a big Aaron Rodgers.
Okay. There is no doubt he is absolutely, hands down, the best pure quarterback in the NFL. I just, we'll see. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. Their offensive line is healthy. So Bakari seems to be back. I think they're going to lean a lot on Aaron Jones and the other guy. And I think they'll be fine. I mean, the problem is that who's going to challenge them in the center, except maybe Minnesota. Minnesota might win that division, but Green Bay, I think, will beat up on enough of those teams that, they'll win.
Right.
All right. So we have, I think we've beaten this to death. So we're going to shift gears again.
Too much to talk about.
I know, and it's this is why for our legion and legions of Sports Dojo disciples, the reason why we do this is because we love sports. I mean, we love football.
We
We
talk
love
about it all day.
absolutely. And listen, if you want to join the conversation, have at it. If not, we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk about sports entertainment.
No wrestling.
No, sports entertainment.
No wrestling.
Sports entertainment. I'm a wizard. Sports entertainer. Okay, and then, again, this is the divide. I'm a sports entertainer. You're a wrestler.
No, I'm very much still.
No, I'm Chris Jericho, baby. I'm getting back. I'm a wizard. So, and this is the other thing that we were truly passionate about is professional wrestling.
I would definitely say I'm more. I love wrestling, but still sports entertainment. That's why I always.
Are they athletic? Yes. Are you entertained? Yes. Sports entertainment.
That's why I loved NXT during the original Black and Gold era.
Days.
It's because it was, to me, the perfect blend of the wrestling
and
the sports.
And it harkened back. It's funny. I was listening to Bully Ray or Bubba Ray and who I really, really respect. There's a show and it's not Busted Open is on Sirius XM and Bully's on there. And you talk about a guy that really does know the industry. He harkens back to the ECW days and the territorial days. And the territorial days was when, wrestling was wrestling. You could stretch a guy for 30 minutes and get a crowd and all that good stuff. So, and I think what's great right now in this time is that, and Tony Khan, who's the head of AEW, said it, when everybody's healthy, it's a good thing. Right. So even when you are starting to get when people are coming in and you're seeing the t-shirts in all the crowds, but you're seeing the New Japan, you're seeing Impact, you're seeing NWA, you're seeing some of the smaller ones or NXT UK, or Stardom or New Japan. It's all good because now it is such a global thing. And the guys at CMLL and AAA down in Mexico, there's a lot of really, really good professional wrestlers / entertainers out there. So let's talk about we'll talk about the big guys. Let's talk about WWE first. 2 weeks or so outside of Clash at the Castle, which I think is going to be a tremendous show.
I think it's going to be bigger than what SummerSlam was.
Yeah, and I think the Euros are going to come out and fully support it. I want to start with the women's division, which I think is a mess right now in the WWE. We've got the tag team titles, which are finally going to be hashed out before that. And you've got Bayley and her group Control, I don't even think they have a name, do they? Not officially.
Not that I can remember.
But anyway, the idea is that you got Dakota Kai, who I was a big believer in, Io Shirai, who I love, or Io Sky, or whatever she is, going up against, and this Raquel Rodriguez, who I really like.
Yes. And
Aaliyah, who I am just like, what?
That's why she was in NXT for a long,
and did nothing a long time.
I mean, like before they were on TV.
Yeah.
She was in there for a long time.
And it's not that she's not good. Because she's obviously a very talented person.
What she brings to the table? What's the game changer about her? What's unique about it?
She uses some of Trish's moves. I mean, they all do. Right. So Raw brings Trish because they're in Toronto, who, by the way, I still think should be recognized as one of the all-time great heels. Because when Trish was a heel, she was amazing. And you want to talk about a trailblazer. So you had all those women for all those years coming up in professional wrestling. They talked about Mae Young. They talked about the Fabulous Moolah, women who were in the wrestling business for 50 years or whatever. And then Trish came, and Trish was so radically different because I remember the Wendy Richters and the the Alundra Blazes and the Medusa Michelli and all those women who came up in the sort of 80s into the 90s, and they were fine. And then Trish came. Right. And Trish was a game changer. And I don't care what anybody says. Trish was that damn good, and she was really good as a heel. And then she brought Lita with her. Now you had Ivory, who was phenomenal, and Ivory is one of the truly, to me, underrated talents. You had Molly Holly, again, a tremendous worker, very underrated. The WCW didn't really have a whole lot of people who were like game changers. What's her name? When Alundra Blaze / Medusa Michelli came over, dropped the title belt in there. Okay, that was a big deal. But then who did you like? There was nobody who was really like the WCW Women's Champion that really could even touch Trish or Lita for that matter. So you bring Trish back, you get a huge pop in Toronto. Trish still looks like $1 million. Trish still looks like she could wrestle. And then Bayley comes out to sort of run her down. Okay. And then Bianca comes out, and then Asuka and Bliss come out. Okay. But what do you gain from any of that?
It's like they're putting this, as much as I love Trish, like they're putting the story on the back burner to include Trish into this.
Mm-hmm. Well, you include Trish because you're in Toronto.
Right.
It's the same reason why you had Edge.
And she's sticking around, or was that just a one time?
No, it's a one time.
It was.
So, like Monday night, Kurt Angle's going to be there in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Okay, it's a one time show.
But I thought I had heard maybe she was like sticking around.
She certainly could. I mean, right. Trish looks.
Doesn't mean she's going to be on there every week.
No. But Trish could add a lot to that women's division. But okay, so you go out there and that's your kickoff, right? Well, what does it move the storyline? It didn't even move the storyline. They didn't do anything with it.
I think it's going to be more of a bringing the tag team titles into the mix.
Yeah, and
because at that point they'll already be tag titles because they're going to fight for it on
SmackDown. They're fighting for it on SmackDown. Just to kind of skip over to that, I thought the Fatal 4-Way, whatever they had, was predetermined and garbage. Because it didn't make anybody look good. Okay, you certainly don't make Natalya and Sonya look good because Sonya kind of got a cheap win off of Nikki. I mean, Nikki does the one big move and she gets pinned. I was like, what is this? Now I get it; they have to have a short match because I don't know. First and foremost, Sonya and Natalya can go. So why you cut them that short? Again, Nikki has the big spot in the match, and she's pinned. And then, they're talking to Natalya and Sonya, and you see Doudrop and Nikki, something, but they don't do anything with that. I just thought the whole thing is a mess. I think it's predetermined now that Io and Dakota win because Raquel and Aaliyah, who would care if they were champs? At least with Bayley, you can have somewhat of a storyline, but I don't understand. I mean, perhaps you can enlighten me because I got nothing.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of I'm a big fan of Raquel, but not of the Aaliyah Raquel thing. I like Raquel as a heel for the most part.
And she needs to be a destroyer. She needs to be like Rhea is, except they're not doing anything with Rhea. And I'm sorry, but I'm not buying. Who's the submission magician? Baszler. What's her first name? Shayna. Okay, Shayna and Liv. Does anybody care about that match?
No, but I think Liv was more of a Vince thing, and I think they're getting ready to move on.
No, and I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to say it like that. Liv is the female version of Kofi because people so desperately wanted Kofi.
Yeah.
Okay, and Kofi was so deserving. She's the female version of Big E. Big E was, people.
Until they booed her the other week.
Yeah, because you killed her character. You did nothing to develop her as champ. Even if she gets in a match and she can beat down in the underdog and she comes back and she makes.
So you think the boo is less at her and more towards the producers?
Yes, 100%. Because Shayna Baszler comes out and it's the old Shayna and everybody's like, all right, whatever. And Ronda's getting arrested and what the hell was all that? I'm sorry. That was just a load of crap. And Ronda, telling Shayna and whatever. I really see that Shayna comes back like Brock did to Kofi and just squash her, and then you've killed Liv. And I'm sorry, but Liv had a ton of momentum, and this is where, like I said, I honestly think that AEW does a better job with their women's division than the WWE does, because there's so much you can do with those women. Like you can portray Liv as the underdog, but you got to make her a scrappy underdog. Okay, there's no scrapping her. She got she takes Shayna into the table. Okay, and then Shayna comes out and just beats her. I mean, it's like, what are you doing to Liv? It's terrible. It really is. And then, the big match isn't even that match. The big match is, Bailey and Io and Dakota versus Bianca, Asuka, and Alexa. Well, all right. How much? I mean, the people in Cardiff they don't care about them. And that's why, I said to you pre-show, why they didn't put Doudrop and Nikki on. Because at least you're going to get popped from that crowd. Even if they completely implode during the match, right?
They're a believable team.
And why the women's championship isn't over there doesn't make sense to me either. So I think the women's division's a mess. I think somehow they squandered Becky, and then Becky got hurt. Anyway, so
I think they'll figure it out though. I do.
Well, I think
there's a little more cleanup to do there.
Oh, got you. And this is where, I'm sorry, but this is where Stephanie needs to step in a little bit, because Stephanie really was. I mean, obviously there was a lot of proponents of the women's revolution, okay, but Steph was the driving force behind that. I mean, even if you bring Stephanie back as the heel, like, because she's a really good heel. I don't know. It's a mess right now. Speaking of something that is not a mess, one of the biggest pops of the night. Who returns? Johnny Wrestling, baby.
That's right.
Your boy.
Gargano.
Who I became a fan of, but you were a big time proponent of him.
Yeah.
Gargano's he was so over.
Oh yeah.
I think he got a bigger pop than even they expected.
Oh yeah.
Because you're talking about a Cleveland kid, Toronto guy. Or in Toronto, and huge pop for him.
Yep.
It was absolutely outstanding.
And credit to WWE. I think some of the couple returns they've had so far, I don't think they've really let the cat out of the bag.
No,
I think there's been
really
speculation of hoping, because they know WWE's looking to re-sign guys, but I don't think it was. I mean, yeah. So I mean, I think that's the surprise factor that we love.
Yeah, and they didn't really go away. And theory is growing on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I see why Vince did believe in him. I love how they reconnected the NXT work and the way, and how Theory spun that, and talking to Gargano about carrying his bags. And
then super kick.
Yes, boom. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I really think they did that right. I think they and another guy too, Dexter Lumis, who is now returning to the silent psychopath, kidnapping Miz in, which I think is going to be great, because once again Miz puts somebody else over, because he's so over as a heel.
Have you seen, speaking of the Miz really quick, I know I'm getting off topic, but have you seen the WWE heels or Evil?
Yeah,
the one on the Miz was fantastic.
It really was.
I just watched it this week.
That's why I love him.
His story about when he first got started, not even being able to change in the locker room.
Yeah, because they hated him.
And it just fueled his fire to even be a bigger...
Well, and that's the difference. The difference is that would have broken most guys. Mm-hmm. And somehow, because, it sounds weird, but it's the same as Castagnoli was, because he was constantly just passed over. Now, it wasn't like the locker room hated him, because they all loved him. But he just kept, they kept passing him over and passing him over. And he just kept grinding and grinding and grinding. And then when they were the bar, everybody was just, they wanted him so bad. They were in the Cesaro section and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah. But they just, for some reason, Vince never believed in him. And it was the same with The Miz. I mean, he was so universally hated because, again, he's a young kid that doesn't know his bleep from the hole in the ground, right? But he learned, and he took the time. And then I am telling you, that famous interaction between him and Brian Danielson,
which
the
was
American
very
President,
real.
which was absolutely real.
And, he
And
talks
that's
about in
what
the interview.
sold everything, because everybody went, holy crap, this kid's legit.
It just shows you how passionate he is.
Absolutely.
I
And
mean,
had been since he was a kid.
right.
Like, even when he was on The Real World, because most people don't
Right.
know
Well,
his true background.
They talked about how he had, because he
All
was
he
not
cared
liked,
about.
he had to create, that's where he created the Miz character.
Right. But all he cared about, even when he was on that show, was getting the professional wrestling. And they were all like, what? Like, this is stupid.
Right.
And he said, no, this is what I want to do. And, you know, I'm one of the 15 people that watch Miz and Mrs. But you watch the interactions with his dad when he talks about his dad never told him. His dad's a nut job, right? But again, and I can understand it because his dad tells everybody else how proud he is of him, but never told Miz,
Right.
which is, I mean, it's a real thing. But the Miz figured out a way to parlay all of that. And if he isn't one of the biggest, one of the most recognizable professional wrestlers in the world, it's because he just grind. But I tell you that that was the heels episode was really, or the evil,
Yes, evil. Right.
was incredibly insightful. But it just goes to show why I've always loved him. People, why do you love the Miz? Because the Miz is what it means to be a professional wrestler. In a weird way, it's the same as Mick Foley. Like, Mick Foley never gave up on that dream. And no matter what, and people obviously universally loved Mick Foley, so he didn't have the same locker room issues, but they never knew what to do with him because he was like Cactus Jack and Cactus Jack Manson, and they're like, well, he doesn't look like a wrestler. He doesn't sound like a wrestler. He's psychotic.
And he found ways.
But he would never stop, and the Miz is the same way. Now he's obviously so over the top, but it doesn't matter. It's almost like with Jericho. Like, Jericho said, months ago, that it isn't about winning or losing. It's about just, putting on a good show. And that's the Miz. I don't think the Miz has won a match in God knows how long.
And I think that I love finding new ways to still be, what do you call it? To be, I can't think of the word.
Relevant,
right.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenge, and they.
Yeah, but Miz, and he'll put anybody over. I mean, he brought the whole thing between, Beth Phoenix wanted another match. Let's go to the Miz. It's like AJ. Like, everybody wants to work with AJ. Now they're like, well, Miz will put anybody over.
Right.
So, and now you're going to put Dexter Lumis over. Right. And I think you're going to see Indy come up. And you were pointing that out to me earlier. So I think it was really nice how they sort of brought a closure on NXT to the Dexter Lumis Indy thing and her. But I think she comes up, and then you can have the Miz and Maurice against Lumis and Indy. And,
What do you think happens with Ciampa?
I love what they're doing with him. And I'm going to tell you this. They're allowing Ciampa to reestablish the Black Heart. Was he the Black Heart, or was Johnny the Black Heart? What was he? What was his gig? Because you followed it a lot closer than I did.
I think it was.
Was he the Black Heart?
I think he was. I think he said that. Because
he had those eyes, but you're allowing him through the Miz to reestablish that. Okay, and I say that because he's doing some phenomenal work. He always did, and that's why I eventually became a fan. But you were the one who turned me on to what he was doing, what Adam Cole was doing, because I wasn't originally a fan of the Undisputed Era until I really watched what those guys were doing. Eventually, they're going to be killing it in AEW. I hope. I think they're all banged up. That's why.
Right. Yeah.
But Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish and Adam Cole, and I think eventually Roderick's got to get out of NXT because he's just being wasted.
Yeah.
But anyway, but they bring Johnny Wrestling back. I think he and Theory have a really good feud for both of them because I think they both can showcase what brought them to the dance. Like I said, Lumis and Miz, I'm all for it because you can do so much with that. And then I think what happens is Ciampa starts to get pushed more towards AJ and Bobby and that sort of thing.
Until he gets eventually his hands on the United States title.
Yeah, he might.
Because that's the first step, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, you could conceivably see a way for him to wrestle the U.S. title away from Bobby. AJ get involved. AJ getting another shot at the U.S. title. I mean, I think the three of them can put on a good match no matter what the combination is.
Right.
I don't know who else you introduce into that, but because there's got to be somebody else that's got to get into the mix because you can't keep having the same three guys wrestling. But I think Ciampa will move into the because I don't think he's going to get involved with Miz and Loomis and all that other crap. I don't know. Maybe they'll bring Logan Paul back and he can wrestle Ciampa.
Mm-hmm. You know who else is not on our script, but who what I enjoyed last night was the little bit of Hit Row and Street Profits.
I was hoping they were going to go. I mean, I want to see that match. Yeah. I want to see Hit Row and the Street Profits. But obviously, you're setting up the model, whatever that crap is. So the model. But what I really like is they have not forgotten about Los Lotharios. Because those guys can go, and I'm a huge Humberto fan. I love Humberto. I love Angel Garza. I think those guys could really because remember, was it Hit Row and Escobar? Yes. Now the other rumors is that eventually Escobar and they're all coming up.
I think they are pretty soon.
And I think if that happens, you immediately interject Escobar, and you can even do Legado and Los Lotharios all in that mix of, Hit Row and maybe the Street Profits. Because I tell you, Legado versus the Street Profits, I'm in. The Lotharios versus Hit Row, I'm in. The model thing, God, Jesus.
But if anybody can, but the one good thing about that is Max Dupree.
Yeah. He's such a good worker.
You find a way to make anything.
He's such a good worker.
Halfway decent.
He's really a talented guy, and I'd watch him in TNA, and I'm like, yeah, he's.
Why do you think? I heard that they were getting ready to leave that storyline in the dust, but they kept it up. You think Triple H sees just small?
Yeah, I think
light at the end of the tunnel because of.
Well, here's the thing.
LA Knight
and what's his name? Who's the who are the two? It's Dio Madden.
And
what are they calling him? They have stupid names, but who they really are?
Mace.
Yeah, Mace. But Mace can go. And Mansoor or whatever his name was. But I think those guys can go. Like they and I think you're going to get good stuff out of them.
Yeah.
So what I see is Triple H knows how good those guys are. It's just a stupid storyline.
They're a good gimmick.
But you can't just trash LA Knight because he brings so much to the table. And then the blonde, whoever she is, Maxine. Who, okay.
Was she brought up from NXT?
Yeah, she was in NXT.
Because I know who she was.
Yeah, she was on NXT for a cup of coffee. But I think, now you've got a lot of potential matches. So I think that's why you keep the storyline going, the models, whatever. But listen, I'd like to see them against Los Lotharios. I think I love Angel Garza and I love Humberto. Yeah. I do. I think those guys are great.
Talented.
And then, but Hit Row, you might even be able to bring somebody else in to Hit Row.
Yeah.
But you got to have the female element. So that's why with you bring Legado up, you got La Madrina. What's her name?
Yeah.
The girl who's not Raquel, but she fights the blonde girl who's not Jade Cargill. And and then Maxine's in there, and she can get in the mix. And I think there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of good mid card stuff there. So I think they're gonna roll. All right, U.S. title, we kind of touched on that. I want to talk a little bit about NXT versus NXT UK. I know we're jumping around a little bit, but I just want to talk about Breaker against Bate. Now, this is a little something more you follow than I do, but I think that's going to be a really banger of a match.
So what you think first?
I think Bate is athletic enough to give Breaker fits.
I like the clash of the two different styles.
Absolutely. And that's if you think about how the other guy who was the drag-off guy,
mm-hmm.
when he went up against Walter. Who's now Gunther, right? What made that completely intriguing was Walter beat the living bleep out of that guy, yet he hung around. Same with Dragoff. Dragoff hung around with Breaker. Breaker's just a brute. He just keeps getting better. He really does. He keeps getting better and better and better. No. I'm talking about Breaker.
Yeah, and McDonough.
But now McDonough.
Dragunov. Yeah.
Right. Okay. But whoever it was, the former Jordan Devlin,
Yes.
I think it was a really good match. Here's what I love. I love that it just continues to sharpen Breaker. By the way, he's more of his Uncle Scott than he is his dad.
Yeah.
Because when Big Papa Pump came, when he became Big Papa Pump, and that's who I see the kid as. He really is more like his uncle.
I watched him mostly in his TNA days.
Yeah.
Scott.
Okay. So when they were in the WCW, first and foremost, I go back to when the Steiners first came. Right. Mm-hmm. They were amazing. I mean, they were the All-Americans. Both went to Michigan. Just brutal. Right. And when they would go up against the Hart Foundation, you talk about some of the all-time great matches of the WWF era in tag team wrestling, because they could hang. Then they went to WCW. They were the Steiners. They were a wrecking crew. And then the NWO hit, changed everything. And then he was Big Papa Pump, right? Well, Rob, the dad, Breaker's dad, became the dog-faced gremlin. And he always had the best line because he said, if you don't like me, bite me, which we always loved, and something else. But Big Papa Pump was like, I got the hook up, holler if you hear me, right? And it was just those taglines that they were just so good. I see Braun in the same light as his uncle because he's going to be able to even metamorphosize more into being like a Big Papa Pump.
Right.
And Big Papa Pump was a star.
Really?
Then, when the WCW fell apart and they weren't going back to WWE because TNA. So, and the reason why it wasn't because of Breaker's dad, it was because of Scott, because the WWE was not going to deal with Scott because Scott he was so angry and they couldn't trust him. And that's why he went to TNA right. And then, so he was, but they were all, they all talk about it now because the biographies, of Kurt Angle and, all the guys who went to TNA said, yeah, we had a lot of fun, but it wasn't like you weren't getting your best product. Like Jeff Hardy was out of his mind there. But, Kurt talked about how he was out of his mind there. Big Papa Pump. I mean, Scotty was out of his mind. I mean, they were all on drugs and they were all just painkillers and
just because.
Well, because they needed talent. Like TNA needed talent.
Right.
These guys were still marquee guys, and you could bring.
But why were they all out of their mind there?
Because they were all on drugs.
Right.
They were all on painkillers. They were drinking heavily and they were partying. But you could get away with that on TNA because
you couldn't in WWE.
No, in WWE it was like, no, we're not dealing with you. We've got a whole new crew of kids coming up. We've got Triple H. We've got The Rock. It wasn't even standards. It was, no, you guys aren't healthy. Like you're
be on your best or you're gonna get pushed aside.
And listen, not that Vince was that, but Vince knew they weren't what they first came in to be. Like Stone Cold was gone. The Rock was heading towards movies, right? Kurt was still Kurt, but like Brock was on the rise.
Right.
So if Kurt's on painkillers and Kurt he's not sober, well, he's dangerous. He's a liability. Okay. Scott Steiner at the end of WCW, he was a liability because he was on. Jeff, that's why the Hardy Boys didn't last because Jeff was doing God knows what, and so was Matt. Matt redeemed himself with the whole, delete. But again, those guys were on painkillers and drugs and they were drinking. And again, you can get away with it in TNA. You couldn't get away with it in the WWE because the fans would have killed them. Would have killed them all. So anyway, but Breaker, I like this. I like how they're developing it because when he comes up, he's going to be a wrecking machine.
Yeah,
he really will be. All right. I think that's enough. NXT.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the two main storylines that are going to matter, especially at Clash of the Castle.
Can I read one really quick clip that was interesting last night? Was the New Day.
Yeah.
I almost would like to see them. Call me crazy. Maybe it's just me wanting to play 2K and make up a new storyline. It'd almost be interesting to see them switch, they're still the New Day, but go from this, the Rainbow Unicorn New Day they've always been to almost like I know you can only get so hardcore in WWE, but like maybe back to being heels or just
But who are they going to be heels against? What you name one team that is more over than they are? I mean, seriously, there's not one team.
They need something new.
I know they do, but those guys too. You got to understand, Kofi's late 30s.
Right.
You know,
So you find
Woods, yeah,
but
but
they've been able to reinvent, like even within the New Day, who they are. Several
yeah,
times.
I mean, you don't. What's saving the Usos is the bloodline. Okay,
Right.
if they didn't have the bloodline, I don't think people would care about the Usos as much as they do, right?
Right.
But the New Day does not, and the problem is that E is hurt,
Right.
and
I don't
E
think
may never wrestle again.
if he does, it's gonna be a long. I mean,
Yeah, but But the other thing is, where do you interject them? I mean, for God's sakes, Creed was the king of the ring, and they did nothing with him. Or not Creed, Woods, constant, whatever. They did nothing with him. And Kofi was the world champ.
Maybe you don't make them heels, but in general, I mean, I just would think it'd be cool to see more of street fighters. Like I don't know, just
Here's the thing: the Viking Raider gimmick is stupid.
Yeah.
And the fact that years ago, when they were the War Raiders, because they didn't have all that nonsense, the Viking crap and all that, they were wrecking machines, right? They were, and that's when they were good. If they weren't the vicious Viking, whatever,
you would think he would change that,
but you can't because it's already there, right?
In time,
it's there. Okay. Now, it's almost like the New Day needs them to change because then you're invested. Mm-hmm. Because then you go, okay, you got War Machine against the New Day versus the Viking. Last night, obviously, they moved. They're going to have the Viking death match or whatever the crap's going to be. It's the same match that they've always had. The problem is the Viking Raiders. There's just nothing you can do with them.
All right.
They're really, I mean, what are you going to do with them?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Because I'm going to tell you what really helped the New Day, honest to God, is the Alpha Academy. Can you imagine the matches that would happen between New Day and Alpha Academy? Because you got Chad Gable running them down.
Well, they're all phenomenal.
Woods running. I mean, again, you're looking at just on the microphone, Woods and Gable. That on the mic, right? Then you got Kofi, and Kofi still can bring it. And then you got Otis as the heater. Okay, that's a match. The Viking Raiders, what are you going to do with them? You know, there was a time where unless you put the titles on them, they're irrelevant.
Yeah, they got to go back to being War Machine.
Yeah, but even still, you got to do something with them. Right. Like, they challenged the Usos for like a minute, and the Usos beat them. Okay. The Street Profits, to me, it was way more disappointing that the Street Profits weren't taking the titles off them than it was the Raiders, okay? But the Raiders are just, God bless them, because those guys are tremendous. I mean, they are wrecking machines. Right. But if you don't have a title for them, it's pointless. Right. So anyway, all right, let's talk about the last two. We're going to talk about the Intercontinental title, which is going to be one bleep of a match.
It might as well be main event.
Yeah, well, but if it better be the first match,
right?
They better open with Gunther and Sheamus, and obviously end with Roman and Drew. Okay, but if that match isn't the first match, I will lose all faith in Triple H. I will lose all faith in him because Sheamus and you and I disagree on this because I thought the talking on the mic was great. Okay. Yeah. And Gunther is getting really, really strong on the mic, right? So the crowd, you got two heels going after each other. Right. And like I said, the people over there, like Sheamus is not a heel over there. But in Detroit, Sheamus is a heel. Because he kept, going down his list of accolades, right? Banger after banger after banger.
I didn't look at it. I didn't look at that as
no. But the crowd was like,
I am the crowd.
Okay. Would you have said banger when he and the crowd didn't respond?
Bangers.
But the response from the crowd, because he said banger after banger after banger.
Oh,
dead Mike, right? Okay. And that's fine. He covered it up.
It's dead. I don't know that makes him a heel. But
no. He's absolutely. That's what makes them great. Is their heels. Okay. It's what sold Drew. That sold the match between them, right? So you got him as a heel. Okay. You got Gunther as a heel, right? On the mic, they're really good with one another. Gunther's like, I am the Intercontinental Champion. I am bringing respect. They're standing toe to toe, and then mayhem breaks out. But my only problem with this, and as I told you this off the air, Moxley and Tanahashi did the same thing 3 weeks ago. Yeah, they're just staring at each other, right? Meanwhile, there's flipping mayhem going on.
Right.
No, let the mayhem just go. Gunter throwing Ridge Holland, and
instead you got the fake holding back.
Yeah, but it was the other.
Meanwhile, he's holding on to his arm.
Yeah, yeah. But and I said this to you, and I will say it to the legions and legions of fans that are part of the dojo. Give me Kaiser and Butchie all day long. Give it to me because those guys can go.
Pete's nuts.
Pete is nuts.
You see him walking around the ring the whole time?
Yeah, he's
and
phenomenal.
Then,
he's selling that.
What's the other guy's name?
Ridge Holland.
Ridge Holland sitting there like trying to You almost think they're gonna fight.
They're like brothers.
Well, Pete's just constantly.
He's
walking around.
Okay, so when he, Pete down there when he was, I don't care about you. Love that. Butchie has grown on me. You got to just let him go.
Right, because he's gonna make.
Yeah,
he's gonna make the best out of whatever he gets put into.
But and give Ridge Holland some time because Ridge Holland can go.
Right.
But again, my only problem was Moxley and Tanahashi did the same thing like 3 weeks ago, where there was the JAS and everybody's brawling and fighting, and Tanahashi and Moxley are staring eye to eye and nothing's happening. I'm like, that was great. You do that with these two, and it's like, oh, jeez, just let them just start going on each other. But I honestly think that will be a tremendous match.
We can do some early predictions.
I think Gunter retains.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason that Sheamus needs to win it.
No, he doesn't.
It'll be a great match.
No, but you start that match and that crowd will be electric all night long.
Well, and I think it's going to be a dominating match, but that's what's going to just add fuel to Gunther's dominance is a great match with Sheamus and coming out on top.
And you can maybe start to work Sheamus back into a face.
Right.
Okay. Or the Brutes, because the Brutes they're over. And I was really thinking like the build up to Drew going for the title, but like there was going to be some sort of like alliance between them, and that they would sort of back Drew up. They didn't, which is fine. I think it's going to be a hell of a match.
But it just goes to show too again how good Sheamus is.
He always has been.
You think about even with the bar. I mean, obviously Vince wasn't behind Cesaro, so
which I never understood.
Which I think it took a lot of Sheamus to help get them
right. But
and then you look at this, and we both really didn't care for like the Butch and the Holland thing.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, we're fine.
They're in. Yeah, I mean, they're listen. We know. I think it's part of it is from their NXT days too.
Right.
We know how good those guys are.
Right.
And Ridge Holland, he had that terrible knee injury that he came back from. But he was like, when he first came in, you were like, oh my God, this kid's going to be something.
But Sheamus just is, he's that mentor, that leader.
And if anything, if anything comes out of this, that it's more of a launching point for Pete, Butch, and Ridge Holland, then I'm all in.
Right.
Because I want to see those guys get involved with something.
Right.
They need to be something other than the Brawling Brutes, or put the Brawling Brutes into the tag team. Like put the Brawling Brutes and the Viking Raiders together. That's a match. Because my God, that would be just a slobber knocker. And as my Jim Ross book. So I'm actually excited about that book. All right. We've been yammering away for God knows how long here. For an hour and a half. Finally getting to the world title. First and foremost, you and I both agree, Sami Zayn is a national treasure.
Yes.
He's a national treasure.
To me, he might be the greatest thing going on.
Is he not? I mean, is it me? Is he not?
You have Roman doing the dancing for the last 2 years has been the. Did you see? This was the second time. The first time was the week after Vince got let go, and Roman dropped the daddy, and then you saw Heyman over there.
Yeah, Heyman
last night. And Jay's the one that's supposed to be having the tough guy act. I don't know if you caught it. If you go back and watch it, he starts doing his little dance, and you see Jay
just start turning his face.
Because you just
it was hysterical.
It was expected from Jimmy because Jimmy's been getting along with him. Yeah, but Jay, he said,
and the whole high five thing too, and you can just see Jay like
he is killing.
Oh my God! And Sami always has. Like Sami's been over.
We've got Roman, who's been. I mean, overall, the best thing in the last 2 years. And then
Hands
you put
down.
Sammy in there with it in that same storyline.
And Sammy
And they're-
is just, and I'm telling you, like last week, not this week, but the week prior, when he says to Sammy, "Have you talked to your boy Kevin Owens? Tell him that I haven't talked.
So good.
Yeah, but I haven't talked to him. I don't know where his head's at. Like Sammy Weasel, that it's brilliant. And I'm telling you, this is my prediction. Something's going to go down over there, and somehow you're going to get Sammy against Jimmy and Jay, and it's going to be
somewhere along. Either Bloodline's going to sacrifice him, or he's going to.
Oh, absolutely.
Or he's going to screw something up, and they're going to. Or
he's
going to feel betrayed, not used, something like that.
So here's the thing, right?
Which they already showed a sign of last week.
Yep.
When he was like, or a couple weeks ago, when he was like, "I want to be, you're not using me," or whatever.
Yeah, and they're sending them to do all the slack work.
Right.
Okay, so again, this is what is amazing about this whole storyline is the storytelling, and you know that they're all together. Here's what's going to happen: Sammy's eventually going to start with I'm not feeling appreciated. You know, like I should be a full bloodline.
Exactly how he says, I'm not being appreciated.
Well, and you know, Jay and Jimmy and you know, brilliant, the master strategist. Okay, Sammy is a treasure. And by the way, the pop they got in Montreal when he came out, the pop Kevin Owens got in Canada. Stop, and that's what I mean.
When he came back out from the arm injury, which you knew he was going to come back out,
right?
And man, we all wanted him to win that
insane.
match.
And by the way, I'm gonna say one of the unsung heroes of the WWE is Baron Corbin. And the more I watch Corbin, the more I realize how good he really is.
Oh yeah.
Because when he pulled Sammy out, that crowd wanted death to him. Like they were so.
You told me Sammy could not get in the ring,
right? But no, when Sammy had the pin, Sammy hit the haluva kick, right, or whatever he hit,
right,
and he's got 1, 2, and Corbin pulled him off, right, and that crowd went ballistic because they wanted to kill Corbin. And I'm watching whatever they're going to do with Corbin, his next evolution. I'm going to say to you that he is one of the most underappreciated talents in the WWE, and he is so good. Like he's almost old school about generating heat.
Yeah,
because he can get it, and in a weird way, it's like how Miz.
I was going to say, in certain ways, he reminds me a lot of how Miz just has handled his business.
But Corbin is like the actual Pat McAfee was. I mean, he put Pat over. He's putting Ricochet over.
Which, you know, maybe after this we can talk about. But Ricochet, I'm excited that he's at least winning some matches.
Yeah, he's such a supreme talent. The other one I miss is Mustafa Ali.
Which I heard he's about to come back.
I hope so.
He's not afraid to. He's going to stick to who he is.
Yeah, and I love Mustafa Ali. He is, you know, all this stuff. Like, what was it? What was the disturbance, or what were they called? The whole group with Mace and all that. Okay, so during the pandemic, when they brought him out as the leader of it, I thought, oh my God, this is going to save that group. And then they did nothing with him. Right? He just looked like a whiny whatever. If they had let him have some freedom to be more Adam Cole-like, to be more Kenny Omega-like. Like, just let him go. He could have single-handedly saved that whole storyline because he's that good, in my opinion. Anyway, so you got Sammy in there, Drew. Okay, if I have to see one more time about how Drew got fired, Drew doesn't even want to do that as vignettes, but you got to have that. Loved how Karrion Kross was like, you and I have talked in prior how they're bringing Kross back. Thank God Scarlett's there. Thank God they brought they
even brought his hair back.
Everything. He doesn't look like some S&M idiot. The Fall and Pray. I mean, stop it. I mean, all of it is brilliant. Somehow he's going to interject himself. Somehow he and Sammy are going to interject themselves in this match. I don't think Drew wins, but I don't think Drew needs to win.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So I was looking at what the next pay-per-view is
after
to decide what's maybe going to happen. And I don't know, is there too much, or are they going overseas for in October? Because the next pay-per-view, according to Google, is until November 26th.
So are they? Do they have another?
So do they have
a Saudi one?
They
might have a Saudi.
They
one.
might. So
Those things, please. Good blood money. Sammy won't be on that. You know he doesn't go
So
over there.
almost for Survivor Series, it either has to be Roman loses. He has 2 matches because
Yeah.
you got to think blue and red brand, and he has 2 matches to either lose both or lose
Well,
one.
or
of
you
the
get
titles.
you get a triple threat.
Or he has or a triple threat, or he's lost it before and somehow I don't know. I think the titles are coming to a split soon.
They have to because you can't keep going like this. Because
Well,
there's too many big contenders that are just going to be because somehow Kevin Owens is going to be part of this. I think you go Kevin and Sammy tag team, but still.
I think USA has even said that they want their own champion because Roman's not on Raw enough.
No, he's not, and he needs to be. But Roman doesn't want to, and again, I can appreciate that because he's getting older. He's still, whether we want to admit it or not, he's still a cancer survivor with the leukemia. But you're missing out on too many opportunities. You really are. So if they split the title or do whatever, they can strip him. I mean, who knows? But the idea is, it is the best storyline going, and both networks want it.
They say that the plan, if he's got this free enough schedule, is really still to do Rock and Roman at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I don't think the Rock. Why, unless you're going to pay the Rock like $1 billion, why would the Rock do it? I mean, yes, it's wrestling. It's his family. Yes, he will always be beholden to Vince and all this stuff. But if I'm Rock, I'm like, nah, I don't need it.
Well, then why do you think he did the John Cena?
Because it's the same. It goes back to the Hulk Hogan thing. Like, why does Brock just keep coming back? Right? It's the Hulk Hogan syndrome. So whenever Vince needed a big name because he didn't have anybody legit, he brought in Hulk Hogan. So Hogan would come back for WrestleMania and it would be fine, and Hogan would win or wouldn't win, whatever. So, and then once you started to build real characters like Austin, Rock, Triple H, you didn't need to bring back those guys, even though they did bring the NWA back, whatever, NWO, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so now it's the same thing. There are no contenders for Roman because you haven't built them. Now, I think Triple H will. I think Triple H will continue to do that. But you bring in Brock because the crowd wants to see Brock. Right. You bring in John Cena. Yeah, they want to see The Rock. There isn't a person on the planet that does want to see The Rock at WrestleMania. But if I'm The Rock, it's like, no, he's, it's what want to do against Oos? Right. It's Big Oos. I think another storyline that we haven't talked about is where Seth and Bro fit in all this, but because they're going to have a killer match. Right. They're going to have an absolute killer match over there. Right,
which will be interesting to talk next week for our pre.
All right.
If we do it.
I got to touch on this very quickly because the big build up, Punk versus Moxley.
There's
Punk's
a lot of
apparently hurt.
Going around with
yeah,
Punk.
There is. I think it was the right call. I absolutely think that Jon Moxley has carried that title.
Is that storyline? I mean,
I don't know. That they showed something backstage.
Punk's not really hurt, is he?
I don't know if he is or he isn't. And by the way, Kenny still looks hurt. Kenny Omega.
I didn't see the match.
Yeah, Kenny still looks hurt, but they're setting up Omega and Will Ospreay and and United. That's going to be that match is going to be outrageous if Kenny's 100%. Right. I don't think Punk's 100%. And it was absolutely the right thing to do to Moxley.
You think Punk's going to last long in AEW?
No, I think he's Punk's in his 40s.
But in general, is he just too much? Whether he's great or not, is he just too much of a? I don't know if you call him whiny or just.
No. He's very polarizing. There are people that utterly love Punk, and there's people who they don't. Like Eddie Kingston makes no bones about it. He and Punk can't stand each other. Okay, but in professional wrestling, sometimes that draws money. Like there were people who felt that way about JBL. Like they hated Bradshaw, and he didn't care because it drew money. But there were people that loved him. There were people that hated Eddie. I mean, people don't want to say that, but people hated Eddie. And then there were his people who loved Eddie. And it's always been that way. Ric Flair. There were people in this world who despised Ric Flair, but it didn't stop him from drawing money. And that's the one thing about Punk. Punk will always draw money. and and he's still one of the all-time greats on the mic.
Oh yeah.
And the fact, like I said, it was the absolute right call. And I don't know if that the injury was work or real, but it was the right call because Moxley has proven himself as he absolutely can shoulder the world championship. There are so many great possibilities against Tanahashi, against who else did he fight over the summer that when this was all going on? The matches that he had, Roosh, I mean, all of it shows that Moxley is the guy. Okay. And now you can bring Cowboy back. You can bring anybody into it, and people will care. I mean, going against Jericho again, like all that, you can do that with Moxley because Moxley doesn't care. Eventually, they might even do Claudio and Moxley, or Danielson and Moxley because they did it and it was a hell of a match. But it was absolutely the right call. I just want to know where in the bleep is MJF. Where is MJF?
This is either real life or it's the greatest
storyline because he's off the face of the earth.
Who's somebody's writing their storylines?
I hope fantastic. So. And that's what I thought was going to happen. I swear to God, I really believed that MJF was going to come back and wreck that match. And he didn't. He's nowhere to be seen. He's not on Twitter. He's not anywhere. So,
they said even most of the other wrestlers have not.
They don't even know where he's at. Yeah. And by the way, Wardlow doesn't have anything good to say about him. But I don't know if that's a work or a shoot. But and Wardlow's been doing great work. I do want to say I am very sad about Thunder Rosa's back injury. She was obviously devastated about it. She'll be back, but I love what Thunder Rosa's been doing. Britt Baker is still, I think, top. And where's Charlotte been?
Yeah, I mean, it take that long.
How long is this honeymoon? Because clearly, Andrade's cool. He's fighting with his father-in-law. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we are wrapping up because we've just been going for almost 2 hours of just riveting talk.
15 minutes turned into
to an hour and 47. We will be back very soon with the next episode of the Sports Dojo. Again, if you did not get a chance to be part of the live stream, give us a look. Give us a comment. Let us know. Share anything. But we will be back. So the sensei and the stallion, we say, Nandeska, konnichiwa.
Watch some college football.
Go Clemson. Go Temple.